today I'm very much honored to have our guest. He's a very well-known individual in the SEO industry. Yes, welcome to the show, Mr. Carl Roof, or shall I call you Carl? Or is it all right?
Kyle is great. Kyle is
Yes.
great. Yeah, happy to be here. This is awesome.
Yes, yeah. So so Carl, perhaps you could introduce yourself and to the audience. Maybe there are those who watch this who may or may not be familiar with your work. So just give your a brief introduction to yourself, and how would you describe your journey into the world of SEO?
Sure. So I'm Kyle.
Yes.
I co-founded an agency called High Voltage SEO, which has offices in Phoenix, Berlin, Melbourne, and now in Kingston, Jamaica. We do local to national to international to everything in between. I have co-founded Page Optimizer Pro, which is an on-page SEO tool. And I co-founded IMG Courses, which is a teaching platform where my courses, and I think we have courses from about 50 other instructors are in there now as well. I go around the world speaking about SEO. I do SEO. Maybe that's one of the biggest things. Not only do I speak about SEO, but actually I do SEO. I think you asked how I got into SEO. The very short version of it is I was a lawyer and I took some time off and I actually moved to South Korea and taught English. And while there, I started a business, and that business needed a website. And from building that website, I had a strong team, and I started general contracting websites. And then from general contracting, got into the marketing side of things. And it turned out I was much better at SEO and marketing websites than I was at building them. So then a few twists and turns later, here we are. And I've been doing SEO for about a decade, a little more. And yeah, it's been a wild ride going from kind of starting an SEO agency from my kitchen in a very sad apartment in California to now I get to travel the world and go to crazy places. I live in Thailand, I live in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
From Malaysia.
Not too far. I was actually just in Penang not that long ago. So
wow.
I love that's a nice thing about living in this area is you can travel so much and see so many cool places.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, just for the benefit of the audience, I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is a neighbor, which is a south part. It's actually in the south of Thailand. So it's only about I think it's about a 2-hour flight to Bangkok. Okay,
that's
right. And then from Bangkok, you are in Chiang Mai, right? So I can take
Chiang Mai. It's only 50 minutes. It's 1 hour.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so it's good to it's very interesting to hear your story on how you got involved into SEO, and I believe there was some legal trouble involving India as well in your journey.
There was. That's what got us out of the web design stuff, where my brother was in the company at the time, and he was in India. We got the bright idea of opening up a company in India, and instead of asking for a bribe, as we were told that they were going to ask for, they threw him in jail when they came to check. And the chief of police was kind of like, look, these might be the right business papers. I don't know. You have two choices. You can leave town tomorrow, wait for the magistrate to come, and the magistrate will sort it out. And my brother was like, when does the magistrate come? And the chief of police goes, I don't know. He goes, I think I'll leave town tomorrow. So this time we were really just coding. So we're hemorrhaging clients because our employees are gone. And my brother could take a handful of the clients because he can't code. He's a coder. And I don't code. And we had just started some SEO contracts. We had just started taking on SEO, and basically for me to pay the rent next month, I needed to learn SEO that day. And wow, that's pretty much what I did.
Wow. Okay.
Going on, like, all right, we got to do something to keep these clients. And then I was able to keep those clients, and things went pretty well. And I was able to get more clients doing SEO. And yeah, it's been.
But I do have a question. I do have a question regarding your experience there. We won't go into the details, right? I'm just curious to know why did you choose India in the first place to start the business?
In Korea, when I had built a very complex website for a company that I had started there, and I had built it on a team of people from India, and so. But we were paying like freelancer rates, and obviously they have time split between different projects. And so I thought, if we go to India with the amount of talent that's there, we can start a company there, and then we can actually bring people in-house. So they'd be our full-time employees. So we would get more work out of them at a more effective rate.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess it's about cost and value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done, I shouldn't have done it. But then on the other hand, I think about, I wouldn't be here today. So
yeah, I think
to...
honestly, I think one thing leads to another. I think if the experience in India hadn't happened, you probably would not be involved in SEO. You probably be more into managing stuff. You see, so things happen for a reason. Even I myself, when I first got involved into SEO, you see, I didn't plan to be an SEO specialist. My intention was actually to be more of a web developer. But when I built my website, the first question that I asked myself was, how do I bring people to my website? Because no matter how well I code the website, nobody's going to come to my website if nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
So that is what actually brought me into what we now know as SEO. So it's quite so things happen for a reason, and I think that your experience in India has led you on down this path, and you have benefited from it. Yes, that's right. So yeah.
For sure.
So maybe you can tell me how would your approach to SEO has evolved since since you first started in the industry. How would your worldview of SEO be after having been involved from the beginning right until today? What would be your approach today, and what was your approach before? Yeah.
Well, when I started doing SEO, I would try to figure out if something is a ranking factor, or if I would do something, and you get just all kinds of opinions, yeses and nos and maybes. And I realized that wasn't going to be effective in terms of how being able to learn how SEO actually works. So what I started to do is I started putting up my own test sites, and just sites kind of just seeing what was happening. And while that's good, and you should do that, I began to realize that I wasn't learning fast enough. Where I'm just putting up a site, but still that takes a lot of time. And I started to develop a way where I could test the algorithm. When what I realized is that you can find SERPs that don't exist, or SERPs that have very few results, and then you can start to optimize pages within those SERPs, and you can start to see if something is or is not a ranking factor, or something is or is not effective. And so through that, I developed a method of testing that, and then through that, I actually have a US patent based on that testing method to see if something is or is not a ranking factor in Google. And so, things have changed a bit in testing, but the core foundation is still the same as it was then. And even though we've had all of these updates and all of these changes in Google, really the core stays the same. The stuff that changes is the stuff on the edges, especially, and that's where people are usually trying to game something, or Google is trying something new. But the core part of it remains very, very consistent, and you can test those things and get a very strong foundation. I think it's important for people to understand, especially if they're new to SEO, is that you can't be 100% correct in SEO. You just won't be. SEO is a game of probability, and the idea is to be more right than not. And so in order to do that, you can find some things that consistently work. They won't work every time, but if you can get them to work 60 to 70% of the time, you're going to be way ahead of all your competitors. Most good SEO is only right about 50% of the time. Most SEO is probably somewhere right 1 out of 3. So if you can get a hit rate of somewhere around 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 as a hit rate, you are so far ahead of the field. So don't worry about perfection. But what you want to worry about is finding a set of things that that if you consistently do them, if you can grind on those things and do them again and again and again, more times than not, you will win. And that's how you can be very successful in SEO.
And would you say that this applies to all niches, or do you approach, do you have different tactics, different techniques when you approach different niches? Like, for example, perhaps for a financial website, you do it in a different way as compared to perhaps real estate website or something related to hospitality, for example. Would you say that's possible? Would you say you do that?
The framework remains the same.
Okay.
The concept of what you're doing, but things do change keyword to keyword, niche to niche, and that's where you can evaluate what's going on. A big thing that I like to just tell people is that the secret is hiding in plain sight. Google shows you the sites that it likes. Now, those sites will be different niche to niche, and they will have different characteristics niche to niche. So if you look at those sites that Google is rewarding for the terms that you want, you can then start to pick up on the clues of what you need to do for your own site to give Google the site that it wants. And that's an important point that a lot of people miss, is that you need to give Google the page that it wants to rank. You can't teach Google anything new. You're not gonna,
That's right.
you're not gonna change the algorithm, with very rare exceptions. So what you need to do is, this is the page, this is the type of page that Google wants. A concrete example here is when people come to me and they're like, hey, I've been optimizing this page and I can't win this term. And I look at their page, and let's say it's like a single product page. That's what they're trying to optimize. And then I look at the SERP for that keyword, and Google is rewarding long form roundup articles. You're never going to get that product page to rank. You have to give Google that long form roundup article type page in order to be competitive, because that's the type of page that Google is expecting. So look at what's there for each keyword, for each niche, for each type of thing that you're trying to rank for. And then that's what you need to develop. But the framework for how you're going to do that evaluation for what you're going to put on there, that all remains the same. It's just you need to look at this particular situation, and then you can figure out what you need to do.
Wow, interesting. Very, very insightful. And given the constantly changing landscape of SEO, how do you prioritize when the techniques, which techniques and strategies to test and to refine?
Well, as I mentioned before, the core remains the same, which is actually really comforting. A lot of people think like Google changes all the time. How do you stay on top of it? Google changes stuff out here all the time, but this stuff doesn't really change that much. And that should give you some hope, or at least make you feel better about life, that it won't always change all the time.
I see.
Or it isn't really, like that core part isn't. So when it comes to things to test, they're usually things that I run into, say with clients have a particular issue. Let's see if we can figure that out. Or on the software side with Page Optimizer Pro, sometimes people will contact me and they'll say something like, my competitor is doing this and POP's numbers look weird, and we'll figure out why that is. And then we'll test if there's like a particular thing that is actually moving rank that you might not have known about. And so a lot of the tests kind of come from practical, I need to know this information.
Interesting. Is it okay if we know whether you could share a recent experiment or a finding that challenged your previous understanding of SEO?
I've known for a long time that no follow links pass juice. And that's been something that SEOs have been talking about for some reason for forever, saying that they don't. But never once when you look at a conversation does anybody ever say, well, I tested this, or here's what I did. They always just say, well, Google says this and I feel that, so it must be this. And it's the most illogical conversation I've ever seen. But that's just SEO all the time. People they say like, well, Google says this and I feel that, and this person said this, so, but they never ever actually say, this is what I did, or I tested it. Or this
actually,
is
on that topic, I can tell you that with some certainty that no follow links do pass some juice, because I've personally tested it myself. Yes, and I've actually go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, see, that's something to talk about then, because then you can say like, this is what I did. Now your conditions might have been something, or the scenario you're in might have been something, but that's then we're talking about that, not just your feelings, because there's no point, like when John Mueller says, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that annoys me so much. Can't he just like lean out the door and be like, hey Joe, like, is this a ranking fact? I mean, why should he have an opinion on anything?
Actually, I think those Google, I have a somewhat strange feeling or inner feeling that those Google representatives, like John Mueller, like Dennis Sullivan, Gary Elias, whom I've met personally, by the way, 3 years ago. I think those people are there just to confuse us SEOs, because sometimes the answers that they give do not reflect reality on the ground. You see, because I've tested some of them myself. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how many websites do you think John Mueller has built?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm going to share with you an experience that I had with Gary, because I met him 3 years ago here at the Google Webmaster Conference that they do every year. They held it in Kuala Lumpur in 2018. 2018. Yeah, 2018. I was there with my agency at the time. He was talking about how black hat techniques like getting spam backlinks, you know, from casino websites or airdrop related websites. If they are linked, if these sites are linking to your website, they don't give a negative factor on your website, because Google is allegedly, according to him, is smart enough to know such black hat techniques, and your website will not get penalized for it. So I challenged him on that. After the event was over, I challenged him on it. I said, I have personally done it myself. I've actually built negative backlinks because I did some negative black hat. I'll be honest here, I did some negative black hat SEO before. So I did that to a competitor, and he did bring his page down. So what would be your response to that? He said, okay, all right. But he didn't, I think he didn't really believe what I said. But the thing is, it does work. It does, negative SEO does work. So do you have an opinion on that, by the way, negative SEO? I mean, on negative backlinks.
If there wasn't something there, then there wouldn't be any reason. Like, how could you get a penalty then? You know, like, you know, how would Google be able to determine this was you sending yourself links versus somebody else sending you these links? You know, so there's no way there would be penalties would be gone.
Yeah, exactly. But according to Gary Elias, he said that Google's algo is smart enough to know whether it's a negative attack or it's something that the person has built himself. So I don't know. Let's just leave it at it. All right. But anyway, let's continue. Maybe perhaps you could share your opinion on how would you see the role of user experience on a website and the core web vitals, especially in the current and future SEO landscapes?
It's hard to identify any of those things as ranking factors on their own. But what I've seen is that if you've got, you know, things in the red for core web vitals, by the way, you know, they're in the real red. Yeah. What I would do is I'd look at why. Why are they in the red? And then that could be where there is a ranking factor issue. You know what I mean? So it's not the metric itself is the factor. It's that it's a symptom of something else, that there's something else that could be affecting something on your site, just in maybe the way Google is crawling the page, accessing the page. So those, like, Google crawling your page isn't a ranking factor, but it's an obviously important thing. So if Google has issues crawling your page or getting through parts of the page, that's going to be that's going to affect your rank. And so I don't stress about like shaving a millisecond off of something, you know, within one of the core web vitals or page speed or something like that. If my time to first byte's pretty good, maybe under a second, then I don't really worry about too much unless I start seeing reds. I would note this though, use 2 tools to look at that kind of stuff. I had a friend that was using page speed. They're using Lighthouse, the page speed insights, the one from Google. Green across the board. And then we put it into another tool and there was a lot of red, and then confirmed it with another third party. There was a lot of red. So I'm not saying that Google's trying to give you bad information, but I would just use 2 tools. I wouldn't rely solely, even on the one that is directly from Google, I wouldn't rely solely on that. You do want to look at your site from a couple different perspectives when you're using that kind of stuff.
Right. So you're suggesting basically you could just use core web vitals or as an indicator of something much more serious, right? It's not the factor itself that will influence rankings, but it's just an indicator of something else.
That's how I use it. Even with user experience, there could be something to user experience in ranking factors. But what I want to see is, you know, I don't think bounce rate is a ranking factor, because if somebody comes to your site, they search for your thing, they come to your site, they read the whole article, they got all the information they needed, and then they leave, did they have a bad experience? Absolutely not. They had the perfect experience. They did the search, they clicked on your thing, they read it, they got their information, they're good to go.
Yes.
That's not a bad experience. And so I don't think bounce rate is necessarily a ranking factor. But if you find, you know, that on the majority of your sites, the average bounce rate is, this is just a random number, like say 50%, that's fine. And then all of a sudden on this section of pages, it's 95%. Well, that in my mind is indicative of something weird is going on between this page on your site and that page on your site. And it's worth investigating why people might have a higher bounce rate than the other. You know, and so it's not necessarily that bounce rate is the ranking factor or the thing. It's indicative of something else might be going on, or something else is there. And so I just look for those kind of weird imbalances when you see those types of things. Or like where people might fall off on your site. Like, okay, they go this far and then they leave. That's not necessarily a ranking factor, but that's something like there might be an issue here. And then that issue might ultimately affect your rank.
Right. So basically the goal of every SEO is to rank for the keywords, right? That is basically the goal. And would you say that there's other factors as well to in order to ensure that you are a good SEO, that you have actually given the service that is expected of you in order to, in order to improve the website, to optimize the website, so that we are worthy of the name search engine optimizers?
So I think if you were to imagine a website is a storefront, a business,
Right.
and there are people walking in front of that business on the sidewalk. Your job as an SEO, what you can do is increase the number of people walking on the sidewalk.
Yes.
You can't make them go in the store.
Exactly.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can encourage it. You can encourage it. You can be like, hey, this is a good store. Look
That's
how
right.
pretty we look. You can't make them buy, anything in the store,
Mm-hmm.
but you can make it enticing. But really, the thing that you can do as an SEO is increase the foot traffic, the number of people that are seeing the store. And so that to me is what an SEO does, that it increases the foot traffic in front of your online business.
That's right. So basically, both of us are actually saying that you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't force the horse to drink.
Can't make them drink.
Definitely not. Yeah.
We had a client back in the day that had this product that I think literally nobody wanted. we ranked for all the keywords. Like, it was just, the impressions were insane and the clicks were so small and the sales were even smaller. So you can rank for everything, but you really can't. You can't make them go in the store, and you can't make them buy.
Exactly. I had my fair share of such experiences as well, so I'm not too surprised. I think we SEOs, we would encounter such such clients once in a while, right? So given the constantly changing landscape of SEO, how would you prioritize which techniques and strategies, such as video and interactive elements? How would you use them for search, for example, videos and interactive elements?
I think the first thing you want to do is make sure that like those videos are showing up in your SERPs, because some SERPs have them, some SERPs don't. Some SERPs have like carousels or different elements, and so I'd see what's available to me, regardless of what it is, and then I would look to see what those sites have done to win it. What kind of HTML have they used? Where on the page is it positioned? Is this unique? Is it stock? That kind of stuff. So all those kind of things I would evaluate. So I'd see what's available to me in addition to the regular 10 spots, right? I would see what else is there, and I'd go in and look at each of the websites that has won something in there and how they have done it. And then I would try to emulate that. Again, as I said before, the secret's hiding in plain sight. Look at what they've done. Look at what that page is, or like how they've done their HTML tags, where they positioned it, what's around it, that kind of stuff. Do they have backlinks coming into something? Do they have other things happening that you can identify? And then that's the kind of thing where you can go and try to take it for yourself.
Right. So based on your experience, especially apart from the things that you mentioned before, what other factors do you think would be crucial for high search engine rankings, apart from on page or improving the content, keywords, etc.? I mean, this is all standard SOP, right? But what other things that you think would also help in rankings, which not many people talk about, not even SEOs themselves talk about?
Well, something that I'm going to give you something that people talk about but never do right, in my opinion, and that's very tight silos. So you have a target page, right? That's a page that you want to rank for your money keyword, your important terms. I always like to build out, say, about 5 pages of supporting content, and that all they do, their only job, all they exist in life for, is to support that target page. So I'm going to have them link to each other. I'm going to have them link up to that target page, and that is it. And I teach this concept a lot, and very few people actually do it. I don't know how many times people say like, hey, I built a silo like you taught, and then it's not working. And I'll take a look, and it's flat wrong. It's like not even close. All you need to do is link these guys together, and then they all link to that guy, and somehow this is a concept. And I'll be like, well, what are these 4 links going to other post on your site, or well, I needed those links. Well, then you
You're,
didn't do
you're
it.
talking you're talking about the pyramid linking, right? The tier one, tier
Yeah,
two type of linking, right?
yeah, and what I do is I call it like a reverse silo, because most people think of their website from the top down, like a home page and then target
Yeah.
pages and then supporting pages. I like to think of those supporting pages first, because they're
Oh,
going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in your
right.
site. If you can research and get those pages to rank quickly
Okay.
for their terms, that's going to give you keywords, impressions, and clicks, and then they're going to build strength. And then that strength is going to pass to your target page.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to do is it's going to make you less reliant on backlinks and any kind of things that are outside your site that you don't control. So what I really like to do is take advantage of my own authority, my own juice, build up my own authority and juice, and then use that towards target pages. And I'm going to build up these supporting pages, and their only goal in life is to support that target page. And as soon as they start doing something else, they're not effective anymore. And a lot of people really try to stray from that. They try to get these things, if you would just do this simple thing and build it in, you're going to be so effective, and so many people get away from it.
I see. So, how would you then approach link building in the current SEO landscape? Do you, are there any specific techniques? Like, for example, I would actually employ what I call the pyramid technique. So there's a tier 3 of links, which will point to a tier 2, and the tier 2 will point to usually an extra tier. I'll call it tier 1. It's a personal technique of mine. And then from this tier 1, it would only target the money page or the main page itself. So that's my technique. Usually people just stop at tier 2 and they will link to the target page directly, but I add extra layer. Yeah. So what would your style be? I mean, there's no right or wrong in SEO anyway.
No. Something that I like to do is, if I have my silos set up correctly, what I like to do is add in one more supporting page, and that supporting page is there to collect links. So it's some form of shareable content, and I'll build links into that. So because I've got my internal linking done correctly, the internal links, the juice will pass to all of my other supporting pages and to my target page. And then it juices up that entire setting and is very, very effective. One other thing I would mention, though, just kind of from a practical standpoint, is that outreach really sucks for link building.
It does. I was going to ask you about that. How would you?
You also want to avoid
get links. Yeah. How would you actually?
You
want
to avoid just pushing a button, getting 1,000 links, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find that middle ground, and content publishing is probably the right approach to that. So that you're publishing content on sites. You're not pushing a button and getting a whole bunch of guest posts.
That's right.
I've spoken several times at conferences for White Press as their brand ambassador. They're a link builder out of the EU, and they have this done for you kind of platform. I like that type of a thing. So I would look to a White Press or something similar to that, where they actually have access to real sites. You are publishing content. The one thing I would add is that when you put that content in, I think you can ask which kind of links or where you want them to go. Make sure that you're putting a link internally to that site that you're posting on. People never do that. They always just have links going to their own site, and that's a clear flag that something could be wrong with this. Make sure you have links going internally to the site that you're posting on, and then also links back to your site.
Okay. That's an interesting approach. What would you say about SEOs? And I know many SEOs do this, getting backlinks from services like Fiverr or from Upwork and this kind of platforms. Do you think that is even SEO Clerk, for example? I'm not sure whether you heard of that. What do you think? Will this be the right thing to do, or is a very gray hat area?
I mean, that's not even gray hat, because I mean, those are going to be automated links, and automated links, people say like any link you purchased is black hat, and that tells me that person has never read the guidelines. Because that's not what the guidelines say. If that were the case, that's what the guidelines would say. But the guidelines are pretty clear on automatically generated links and links that don't have editorial review. Editorial review means the site that posted the content hasn't looked at that content, hasn't reviewed your site. So if you did something and you pushed a button and you got all those links, that's a violation. And if you're publishing on a site that is not reviewing your content, that's also a violation. That's where, so like you can get much cheaper links for sure on Fiverr or Upwork or wherever.
Yeah.
But I would go with a few less links and spend a little more money and do it like on a platform like WordPress, for example, that they are doing editorial review, meaning the site that is posting this content has actually reviewed it, likes it, has seen your site, is approving of it, and is posting that way. And then you're staying within the guidelines.
So how would you feel if, an SEO were to build their own PBN, a private blog network, building authority websites with proper content, everything, not spammy ones, with real traffic, real visitors, and then using these websites as part of a network to link to their clients? Would you say that is a good idea?
I would say there's a chance they're working for a Fortune 500 company, because that's what they all do.
Oh wow! Okay. I'll be honest here.
So here's the thing:
I'll be honest
you're
here.
allowed to.
Yeah, I'll be honest here. That's actually what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, so you're allowed to build websites. That turns out that's legal. You're allowed to link to sites you own. This is also legal.
Okay.
The only thing that you have to be wary of is making sure that people understand the connection between the sites. So as long as you acknowledge, like, these sites are connected, this is a sponsored post from this company to that company, and these companies are connected. As long as you make those disclosures, you're allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, one of my favorite examples is Wayfair. It's a company in the US that sells furniture. They have 5 brands that I think are selling the exact same pieces of furniture, going after the exact same keywords, all linking to each other.
Oh,
yeah. So that you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have multiple brands, multiple businesses, all linking to each other, just so long as you're transparent on the connection. Especially, let's say one of the, and PBN is a lazy term, because what you're building authority sites, I mean, and they are linking to each other. But if you're doing a review, and let's say one of your products is going to be #1, you just need to make it clear that you own that review site, and it's a very biased #1. Like, you need to be kind of clear about that. You can't hide the fact that one company owns the other company, or one company owns the blog that is reviewing. So you need to be transparent there. But as long as you have that transparency, as long as you're clear that these are biased posts and that there is a connection between the two companies, then you're fine. You're allowed to do that.
Interesting. Because I'm actually thinking, like I said earlier on, I'm actually thinking of building something like this, and I'm actually in the process of building something like this. Okay, so with regards to SEO in general, not just about link building, what do you think are the common SEO myths that that you like to debunk here?
The biggest one, this is kind of like a theme all through my testing, is that Google isn't human. So Google can't read the same way you read. Google can't see a website the same way you see a website. Google is a bot, and it reads in math, and it does things in math because it's an algorithm. It's doing, and it's then ranking content. Like, Google doesn't make any value judgments, meaning Google doesn't look at me like, oh, well, this author is from Stanford and this author is from Harvard, so I'm going to give, like, Google doesn't make those judgments. Like, what's better? Google doesn't make any kind of value judgments like a human would. So the biggest thing in all of the myths is you need to be able to take away the human aspect that you want to give Google. The other thing is, just because Google has a patent, or just because it's possible, doesn't mean that Google is actually doing it. Keep in mind that Google as a business is going to want to do things as cheaply as possible. So they will always take the path that is the least amount of money with the best result. And so just because they could do quantum computing doesn't mean they're going to do it because it's incredibly expensive. They're probably still going to keep things as they are and then tweak. And then only when they must spend more money, they will. So if there is a cheaper alternative, they're probably going to do that. And that's how I try to look at what Google might be doing in a certain situation.
Interesting. So so perhaps you could tell us, do you stay updated, by the way, with the algorithm changes by Google, especially because a lot of SEOers, whenever there's an algorithm change, the whole SEO world panics and everything scrambles. Everyone scrambles for to change their website or to adhere to Google guidelines. So, like, for example, the recent helpful content update. So do you actually have such a reaction? or do you
No,
approach it in a
never.
different way? How would you approach
Almost,
it? Yeah.
I like Google updates. That almost always gets me more clients. Google updates are almost always a good thing. But here's why people freak out.
Yeah.
It's because they don't have any benchmarks. You should know how many times you should put your keyword in certain places for what you're trying to rank for. How many times you should put its variations. How many times you should put contextual terms. How many links do you need? What types of links? You should have these benchmarks for your target pages. So then when there's an update and there are things change within the top of Google, you can then assess what those differences are, and then you know what to tweak. And if you're not doing that, which is 99% of SEO, if you're not doing that, then you just run around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah. Headless
Not being
chicken.
able to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to have benchmarks first.
Mhm.
But that takes time and it's boring and it's not fun. So why do it? But yeah, so step one to avoid panic in an update is to get benchmarks, and then life will be a lot better for you.
So leading to that, since you mentioned benchmarks, what would be your benchmark then to determine whether you've done it the correct way? Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're on page 1, you've probably done something right, so you can feel confident that your numbers are probably where they're supposed to be. But a lot of people don't know what their numbers are. Like, do you know how many times you put your keyword on a page? They might know that one. What about variations? Like, and a variation is kind of like lawyer to attorney. That's the same word. It's just said slightly differently. Do you know your counts on your variations? You know your counts on your contextual terms. You know your counts on your entities.
Right.
And you should. You really should.
By the way, what about LSI keywords? Would you say that actually helps in getting your targeted keyword ranked?
LSI is just contextual terms, and contextual terms provide meaning, and they are certainly a ranking factor. Old school SEOs hate the term LSI because it's not the right term. Latent semantic indexing is not the correct term for it, but get over yourself. That's what the industry calls it. But it means contextual terms. Terms that provide context and meaning are certainly ranking factors.
I see. Interesting. Because my method of getting a content rank is first I will of course review the content, and then I will select certain keywords. I usually use SEMrush, by the way. This is not an advertisement for SEMrush. It's just a tool that I often use. I primarily use. Okay, I mean SEMrush. Pardon my French, but SEMrush is fucking expensive. But fortunately, my agency provided that for me. So I'm using SEMrush at the moment. So what I do is I do this research using SEMrush, and they give the search volume, and I will pick those search volumes, and I will of course present it to the client first. Once the client agrees, only then do I use these keywords as part of the content. And the sites that I often use to optimize, I mean, the clients' websites are mostly in WordPress, and there's this great plugin called Rank Math. I'm not sure whether you heard of it. It's a really amazing plugin. It's much better than Yoast, by the way. Sorry, Yoast, but that's how I feel about Yoast. Okay, but I really love Rank Math, and I use Rank Math to optimize the content. So would that be a normal process, or is there something else?
Sounds magical?
Fine to me. something that I've done wrong, or something? Maybe you want to add on.
No. The point is the grind. Doing something is better than nothing. Most people just worry about SEO, but instead of actually doing an SEO. So like a medium SEO plan that's executed perfectly is going to be better than the most amazing SEO plan that's executed poorly. So yeah, what you just talked about, that sounds great to me, and you continue to grind on that. I'm sure you're going to see a lot of success.
Thank you. So So beyond the major announced updates, how would you identify and adapt to the subtle changes in search algorithms? Because from my experience, there are some changes which sometimes Google did not announce, but affected keywords. I'm pretty sure you have experienced that as well. So how do you adapt to that?
It's the same thing. Like if you see changes in the SERPs, there's been a change. There's been an update of some kind. Either that or competitors have gotten. They're doing something else, and in my mind, them doing something else or an update is the exact same thing. And so it comes down to having those benchmarks in both situations, so that you can compare what you had before, and then you can see what they have done, and then compare against, and you can tweak from there.
Okay, so yeah. So if you don't mind us answering this question, because I think this is a sensitive question for some SEOs, okay. How would your tool set evolve over the years? Are there any specific tools or new tools that you use, or do you find indispensable now in doing your SEO work?
I mean, I also use SEM Rush. I have for some
I think
time.
that's pretty much
Actually,
the
no, we
standard
started.
agencies, right?
It was
Yeah.
actually in March of 2020 when COVID hit, and the agency got really concerned about losing clients and what was going to happen. And that time we had them all. We were using Moz for this, and we were using Ahrefs for that, and we were using Majestic for this, and SEM Rush for that, and SEO Profiler here, and Screaming Frog there, and all the others. And what we did is we went through all the little things that we were using each one for, and we found something similar. Excuse me, in SEM Rush, more so than we could find in the others. And so we just made the decision, okay, let's cut all of our subscriptions on all those other ones and then go all in on SEM Rush. And then I actually did a video series for SEM Rush and got like 6 months free, which allowed us to kind of cover the cost of the transition, right? So we had to bump up our plan, but that was good. So we got kind of the freer, or we got a free plan while we were able to kind of get rid of, kind of got us through. But that's the main reason that we're with SEM Rush more than anything else. But no, the rest of my tools have remained pretty similar over the last couple of years. I like some Chrome extensions. I use like SEO Quake, for example. I use SERPworks. I use Keywords Everywhere. And then of course I use my own tool, Page Optimizer Pro. I kind of like my own tool.
I should try it. I mean, can you tell us what your tool entails? Is it similar to SEMrush, or what other features does it have?
No, it's just an on-page tool. So you put in your page, and then we tell you what terms to place where, so that Google will like your page more. And if you don't have a page, you can also do it from there. You can do it from scratch, that you haven't built the page yet. And then from there, then you can kind of get suggestions to start. And then actually, to your point, if I can shamelessly plug, we have a feature called Watchdog. And so what Watchdog does is, after you've done your optimizations and you like where you're at, you turn on Watchdog, and then if there's a change in the SERPs, we actually send you an email and say, hey, there's been a change. These competitors have changed, and here are the things you need to tweak to stay in line. And then the frequency check is weekly, monthly, or quarterly, depending on your plan. And so it's like, when people ask, like, how do I stay on top of Google? This is it, where you will get a notification when things change and what you need to do.
Oh, interesting. Do you have a subscription fee for it?
Yeah, we start at $27 a month, and obviously that doesn't give you a ton of usage, but that gives you enough to do several pages. We also have an AI writer, and the one thing that we did, AI writers are not cheap when you're going through a tool like mine, because we have other kind of overheads. Like if you just need a pure AI writer, there are cheaper options for sure, because we're an SEO tool with an AI feature. But something that we've done is that if you have your own GTP4 key, you can put that in, and then we only charge 1 credit to use the tool. So it becomes a much more cost-effective way to get if you're using AI and doing AI content.
Wow, I think I should try it out. I think I'll try it out later after the
I'll throw you some free credits.
Yeah. No worries about that. Don't worry. Anyway, I'll honestly, I'll try it out. All right. So anyways, when you analyze your data, the SEO data, how do you differentiate between correlation and causation in the SEO matrix?
A lot of what you're going to do is with correlation. That's almost all of it. But when people say like correlation isn't causation, that's true, but they miss the next step, and that's that causal factors correlate. Meaning, if something is a fact, you can kind of see the cluster happen, that these things that are causal, and they do correlate. So really the biggest thing is getting back to what I was talking about earlier on, it's a game of probability, and you need to do the things that move the needle. And even though you've done them correctly, sometimes it won't work. But if you do things with intention, say on a 3-month plan, we're going to do this month, this next month, and this next month, and you stick with it, and then you evaluate what happened. Then you can start to refine your process so that we can be like, okay, it appears that this didn't work. Let's try this shiny object here. Instead of constantly chasing new ideas, do it after an evaluation period and then adjust your game. And in doing that, yeah, you're looking at things that are correlating, but what's going to happen is they're going to start correlating a lot better, and they're going to start, hitting it at a higher frequency rate. And so that's kind of how I would approach that. If you're systematic in what you're doing and you're diligent in how you're doing it, and then you evaluate after a certain set of time, even though we are dealing with a lot of correlation, you can start to get things that are consistently winning and consistently bringing success.
Awesome. So how do you decide which metrics to monitor closely when you evaluate a particular website's SEO performance? Is there any particular set of
the most important thing is gaining keywords and gaining impressions. Healthy sites that are successful, sites that are gaining keywords and they're gaining impressions. And if you're losing keywords and you're losing impressions, that's where you're headed in the opposite direction. As you said, you can't make them click, but as you get more impressions, those clicks do come. As you gain more impressions, you gain more clicks, then more sales come. That's just kind of the natural course of it. So the thing that you really want to keep track of is how many keywords you're ranking for and how many impressions you're getting. And I don't sweat too much rank position, because I'm looking at more like, let's cast as wide a net as we can in order to get as many keywords as we can, which will then get as many impressions as we can.
That's right. So yeah, we have been talking about Google algorithms, Google this, Google updates, but we haven't, talked about their competitors, Bing, DuckDuckGo, I think, what's the name of that China search engine? I've forgotten it.
Yandex.
So,
no.
Baidu. Yes, Baidu. So do you what would be your thoughts on those search engines, or are they important for us to focus, or do you think that they are not really relevant in the industry? Because I don't see many people talking about those search engines.
Well, Yandex and Baidu are their own thing, because Baidu being basically strictly Chinese results. I don't know if you can get English results in that. And same with Yandex. I don't know much about it, but I imagine it's
mostly Russian.
To be
all
Russian results, right? So that's something that I haven't played with either. But when you're talking about like a Bing or a DuckDuckGo or Yahoo, did you know that those are all Bing?
Yes, I do.
So we're not talking about like all these others. We're really just talking about Google.
Bing.
And Bing.
They're using Bing engine. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Same with AOL. Same with like if you, for whatever reason, you go through your cable company and search on their homepage. That's also Bing. And what I found with Bing is that it comes down to on page more than anything. And if you dial in your on page, you do very, very well. And I have not seen a huge difference between the on page needed for Google and the on page needed for Bing. And so when I talk about my on page strategies, I'm talking more about Google, but I found that they work just as well with Bing. And so I try to dial in my on page. And remember, Bing's probably a little less sophisticated than Google on certain things. So you need to make it as easy as possible. We always say, make it as easy as possible for Google. It's even more so for Bing. So if you have bad semantic structure, your H tags are all over. You start with an H5 for some reason, and then go to an H2, and then you're like at an H. Like if you've got this weird structure, you're really hurting yourself for Google, and you're probably hurting yourself more for Bing. So dial in your on page. And I do it as a focus on Google in terms of counts, but in doing so, I find you do very, very well in Bing.
But have you come across any page where it ranks very well in Bing, but it doesn't do so well on Google, or vice versa? Have you ever come across such an incident?
Yeah, that certainly happens. Yeah, for sure. There are times when you're ranking extremely well in Bing, and for whatever reason, Google doesn't like it at all. That's just a reality of doing this.
Yeah, so there's no you can't find the reason for why it's not ranking well.
Between the two, I'm not really sure. I have not spent too much time on that.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I don't really focus much on Bing, because in Malaysia we focus more on Google. I mean, whenever people say search engine, immediately think of the big G anyway. So, I mean, the days of, back then when I first started out, it was mostly Yahoo, and then it evolved to Yahoo and Google. And now it's just mostly Google. So that's just how it is now, right? But anyways, what about mobile search, mobile indexing? Google has this mobile first indexing. Do you think that's important for us SEOs to look into?
The important thing is to look at the mobile version of the site and make sure it's what you think it is, because we all work on desktop when we publish.
Right.
You want to make sure that there aren't any significant changes between what you're seeing in desktop and what you're seeing in mobile. Way back, years and years and years and years ago, sometimes mobile would strip things out, I think, to make it a little bit easier on phones. And that would actually have an impact on mobile ranking. Now, I don't really think that happens anymore, but I would just do a quick double check just to make sure that everything, all the elements that you're putting on in desktop as you publish, as we all work on laptops and computers, that you do get the exact same content and content in the code on mobile as you are seeing in desktop.
Okay, so how would you see the future of SEO now? I mean, with the rise, right now we have ChatGPT is all the rage now in the industry. I see a lot of SEOs, using ChatGPT as part of their tool set now. In fact, I myself am using ChatGPT to optimize my content. Using this AI especially. So how would you view SEO in terms of the rise of voice search, AI, and all these emerging technologies? In fact, I think voice search is something quite something new. It's not new, but it's something that not many SEOs talk about. So do you have an opinion on that? Yeah.
For voice search, 98% of it is, hey, Google, what's the weather today?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so there's nothing to optimize.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
or it's like, hey, Google, what time is it? There's nothing you can optimize. And then the other part of it has to be, hey, Google, play this song. That's got to be all of voice search. Yeah. So I don't worry about optimizing voice search too much because I don't play in those spaces. If you had a weather site or a time site, you probably got screwed by that. And then also featured snippets. So it's like, what's the time in Rome, right? They need to know the time there. Yes. And it just pops right up. So if you had a whole website dedicated to tell people the time, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, that's right.
But otherwise, I don't worry about voice search too much because I'm not in those spaces. For anything else, though, and so ChatGPT is hot right now. It won't be in 2 years. Something else will come along that's better, different. It might still be around, but something else is going to come in, and that thing is going to kill SEO. And I can tell you right now that it won't. And it won't because as long as there's an algorithm, as long as there's a computer picking these things, there will be optimization. We're done when it's a human actually making the choice and manually curating results. But otherwise, as long as there's a machine and a math algorithm that is making these decisions, there will always be SEO. We just have to be able to adapt to what the SERPs look like and what those algorithms want. And as long as you give the algorithm what it wants, you can be very, very successful.
All right. So what advice would you give to someone who's starting to learn SEO today? Like, for example, someone who suddenly woke up from the bed this morning and said, "Oh, I want to learn SEO." What advice would you give them? Because I won't certainly tell them go back to year 2000 and learn the history of SEO right from the beginning, like what I experienced. So what would you tell a new person?
I would tell them to learn SEO, or to do SEO. Okay. Like actually it's one thing to open up a book and learn anything, right? But it's a whole other thing than to take that and put it into practice. That's right. And so you can watch all the shows you want, you can take all the courses you want, but if you're not actually putting up a web page and actually tinkering with something or trying a technique or going out and trying Fiverr, as you talked about before, like go do that. Put up a website that you can practice on, go to Fiverr, buy the links and see what it looks like. See what that experience is like. Yeah. You should just to see what that's all about. So, and have these test sites that you don't care a lot about, but that you can put stuff up on and try things out. You will learn so much faster doing that. And you'll actually gain experience that you can speak from a position of authority because you've actually done it. And so that would be my, and then, you know what? I've always really wished that I knew more about servers, like how they work, how to set stuff up, how to like point things here and there. I rely on other people to do it and it annoys me. So maybe if I think I'm too old to learn now, but if I go back in time, I'd probably learn how server structure works.
Actually, that's very good advice about server structures, because I myself am tinkering with servers. I have a VPS which I run personally, and of course it's a managed VPS, but I mess around with cPanel. I personally install my WordPress manually, by the way, via FTP. Yeah, so I do.
You're so far ahead of me.
Oh really? Oh my!
I remember I've done that before, like way back when I had to, and then that knowledge has gone away. But I really wish I had an understanding of it, you know, and I really don't have any structure of like, or understanding of like, you know, my SQL and stuff like that. I don't.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry. You don't really have to learn much coding. You just need to understand how it works. That's all. As an SEO.
Yeah, right? and I understand it. I just wish I could go. If I were to go back in time, I'd learn how to do all that.
Yeah, that's right. So what would do you have any specific resources or courses or books that you recommend for these people? I mean, apart from this channel, obviously, and your stuff.
For me, if they go to kyleroof.com, there's access. You can get links to my software, Page Optimizer Pro, and links to IMG courses where my courses are at, and then we have a bunch of other courses there as well. So that'd be my pitch for that resource.
Yeah, I think I'm also a member on your forum as well, but I'm
excellent.
But I'm not a paid member. I think it's a free membership somehow. Yeah,
could be. I think we allow you in so you can see a little bit.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's interesting to be there. So I would recommend those of you who are watching this podcast to go to Kyle Roof's forum. It's called it's IMG Go, right? IMGO.
Yeah, img.courses is the URL.
Yeah, img.courses. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Or they can go just to kyleroof.com.
Yes, that's right. So I would recommend those of you who would like to know more about SEO, please go to kyleroof.com. Okay. And yeah, so do you have any specific or any upcoming projects or tools or courses that you are excited about that is coming up right now, and you don't mind sharing with the audience?
Within Page Optimizer Pro, within POP, we're about to release a bulk AI feature. So you can do like bulk projects or pages, so you can kind of run like 50 pages at one time in POP and get the reports. And now we're syncing that with our AI tool, so you can do those 50 reports and then get 50 pieces of content. Close to push button. You still have to kind of put in some things on how you want things to go, but it's getting closer and closer, just kind of like one button, kind of get the recommendations for the pages that you need, and then get the like a rough draft of content through the AI writer.
Amazing. So yeah, so I guess with this we can end the session, and thank you, Kyle, for coming onto the channel and sharing your thoughts on SEO and your journey, as well as giving great advice, by the way, I think, to those who are interested to go into SEO.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.